Hello. Okay, so as usual, I have some things written down, and I feel like there's multiple headlines, if you will. When I say headlines, just like broader topics that I feel like I want to talk about, and then they'll just kind of weave through and see what comes up. And so I also just, I was going to say launched, but I guess technically it's not launched, but I just published a Patreon. It's like a membership type of thing, and I only have one video, or audio, I should say. It's an audio posted so far. And because I wrote so many things down for this recording, I have like a page, and then on the back of the page, I sort of plan to go deeper in a Patreon audio. So, I just wanted to kind of get that out there, because a lot of the topics that I want to talk about, I feel like there's so much room to go deeper, and Patreon feels like the best place to really sort of like do that. So I just wanted to say that. I got a little bit distracted because some flying creature just came in. It almost looked like a mini, I'm honestly not sure. Like at first glance, I thought it was a bat, but it definitely wasn't a bat. But it kind of flew like a bat. So I just, I have a free trial on my phone of an oracle deck, and right before I did this, I was just self-divinating for a minute, and the lunar moth, or some sort of moth, for some reason I'm seeing a lunar moth, came out, and then after that the salvia plant card came out. I don't even know the name of the deck, but either of those things could be relevant, and you didn't feel it most likely, but I just paused. A fly buzzed by my ear, and someone like got out of their car. It's so weird. They look like the same car, but one's in blue and one's in white, and someone like slammed the door. It's like identical cars, but again, one is blue. Why am I having such a hard time speaking? One is blue and one is white. And I was just talking about with my friend who I'm staying with, essentially like parts of ourselves. I'm going to use this speak, and like, it's just the way the words are coming through, but please feel free to like use your own interpretations or any other words that fit for you. But it's like old timelines collapsing of like versions of ourselves. And I know a lot of people say that all the time, but that just keeps coming up. So I figured, I didn't even write that down, but it like really caught my attention. I'm hearing for someone, this could be really specific, like a door could have just shut, meaning like an opportunity, a relationship, a friendship, a behavior pattern, something could have just like kind of closed itself. Now all of a sudden I'm hearing birds. You might hear them too in the background. Oh, you hear that one? Yeah, so there's some sort of, and the fly is back. Now all these birds are flying over my head. So there's like some sort of incoming I'm hearing. And the birds, just 3 of them formed like a triangular pattern. Let's see. So there could be some sort of like, now my left hand is buzzing. Like if anyone, not everyone will align with this, but if you're like maybe feeling a little bit worried that something just closed out, some sort of like timeline, karmic cycle, pattern, etc. I'm hearing blessing in disguise. There's a song that's coming in my head. I want to say it's Elvis, but I'm not sure. It's called like either Angel in Disguise or Devil in Disguise. I don't know, but that's coming through. I know it's an old song, but okay, what's next? someone might literally be asking themselves that, like, okay, what's next? Or if you're not, when you start asking yourself that question, it's like, you're ready to let go, whatever that is. So, if you need to take time to just like be in that in-between space and that eventually neutral space, if you're not already there, any time to like grieve whatever it is that you closed that door on, or if you feel like you didn't close it, maybe it was kind of like sort of, what we call like divine intervention or something, where it just kind of seemed to happen, then yeah, it's like just, it's okay to give yourself that space to navigate the in-between, or the grieving of something. Okay, all day I've been feeling like I'm getting, like if you get like a needle or an injection or something, and it's like that pinch feeling on your arm. I've been getting that feeling all day on my arms. This might be like the 5th time. So I just looked down and I'm seeing like an X. I'm not exactly sure what this is trying to say to me, but I just wanted to bring that up because I'm not going to interpret it right now if it weaves itself in, but I just was guided to say that, so I did. Relevant numbers that could be coming up. I feel like there's a lot of numbers that I felt relevant, so anything that corresponds with, like, I keep seeing like 9/11, 3/11, 7/11, so any of those could be relevant. And when I went to write down 3/11, I wrote down 3111 with 3 1s. 3s could be relevant. A lot of 3s. The number 3. 3, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 5. And then anything like a number 0, a number. So like 808, 707, 0303. I don't know why. So I know it's a lot, but if anyone is listening right now, well, in your right now time, and wants to share any of those number meanings, you can put in your search engine. If you're not familiar, please feel free to. I'm not going to interpret the numbers right now, but all of those numbers kept coming through really heavily. And right before I went to record this, I saw 1111 twice, and then 444 and 333. Like, those kept repeating. So yeah, lots of numbers. Okay, what's next? And I keep saying that. I don't think I usually say that. So maybe someone here is really feeling like in a holding pattern, and they keep asking themselves, like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Because it's funny, I just keep saying that. And as I looked down on the timer, it was 8:11. So again, 11 with a number preceding that. I initially I was inspired by something that came to me in meditation a few years ago that I like to call the absinthe frequency. I'd like to say that is like not quite literal of like drinking absinthe, but they say, in movies and stuff, there's like just depiction of what drinking absinthe is like. And I got to this space in meditation one day and that's just the phrase that came to me. And it was just this most, I'm hearing the word resounding. It was like this resounding, like, clarity, yet also expansiveness. And sort of like when I would see absinthe depicted in movies and TV shows and stuff, it was like this surreal experience. And so ever since then, with a few private clients, I would say we're going to go into the absinthe frequency. Now, I just want to, put a disclaimer, like, I am not saying that anyone should go out and drink a bunch of absinthe or anything like that. This is more of just like a creative expression to describe one of my metaphysical experiences. So I just want to note that. And there's something that I experienced at one of the points when I was in meditation with this, alleged absinthe frequency. I want to say alleged, I just mean, like, again, this is just my own phrase and like creative expression of that metaphysical experience. I just really want to emphasize that. So there's like visuals that I've seen over time, like through my travels or just like friends' items, where like I would see it and like hear that phrase again. So there's like different visual representations that like help evoke that feeling that I've experienced. The thumbnail that I created for this, usually I create the thumbnail after, but for some reason I did it before. And this thumbnail, it's not the exact version of different things that I've seen that evoke that feeling, but it definitely taps into that. So it's a little bit more like, I don't know if whimsical is the right word, than I usually do, but yeah. So anyway, it always gives me like a fairy vibe, like a lot of like turquoise and antique vibes and copper, and like something just bit my ankle as I was saying that. Again, it's that pinch feeling. Maybe someone here is like experiencing a pinched nerve, or like maybe they're feeling pressure to get some sort of shot or something, or like a needle. I don't know, something like that. Like, I'm not going to go into that right now, but like if that's you, just know that maybe you're in the right place. I don't know, because I keep feeling that sensation. And you know, that sensation can be felt through different ways. So I'm just bringing through what I'm hearing in terms of like possible reasonings for that. Okay. So this absinthe frequency, I remember I was very, I guess you can say, guided to go to Kansas, the state in America. And I remember when I got there, a lot of the people that I met along the way were like, why are you visiting here? Like, no one comes here to visit, very rarely. Like, what are you doing here? And the truth was, I had a dream. I was traveling for like a year straight, basically. And I had a very vivid dream where this man, it was like a man, I don't even recognize him, like physically, but like I recognized his like energy, I guess you could say, or his essence. I don't know. And we were in this living space in the dream, and he was like, okay, it's time for you to go to Kansas. You, like, basically, like, you'll know where, just like look stuff up and it will guide you there. And he didn't say those exact words, but that was like the understanding. And you're there to anchor specific Lemurian codes. And I know there's a lot of controversy right now about Lemuria and if it ever existed, and people going off the deep end and embodying this Lemurian fantasy and fairy tale. And so I don't want to go too much into that right now in terms of like wherever your stance is on Lemuria and what whether or not it existed or what it stands for. You know, that's always open for discussion, and feel free to like comment on that. But I just kind of want to share my experiences, and then if there's that conversation comes up for some reason, I'm willing to talk about it, but I don't want to like go into that fully right now, if that makes sense. So I just had this knowing after the dream. There was a little bit more, but not too much, honestly. It was literally just like, okay, it's time to go to Kansas. You know, when you get there, you'll know what to do. And I was like, okay. And I, you know, at that time was already doing some grid work by myself, I guess you could say. Like, I wasn't like facilitating groups too much, maybe in like, you know, one-on-one sessions or like small group sessions, but I wasn't like outright like, it's hard to explain. It was just kind of like something that was happening to me naturally, and I was kind of studying different people along the way who were also doing this, and it just sort of like was happening. I believe she calls herself Indigo Angel, has like higher ascension mechanic grid work courses. So I never took one, but I would watch some of her videos, and just from like some of the things that were coming through my own you know, channel ceremonies, dreams, experiences, memories would kind of coincide with her work in a way. And it kind of helped activate those versions of me that, you know, I didn't feel the need to take her course. A bee just flew in right now, so a bee could be significant for someone. And I just feel like I got stung again. Yeah, maybe someone here is really feeling like they're under the stinger I'm hearing, or under the ringer. Like, this feeling continuously keeps showing itself. So now I'm hearing the word venom, snake venom. That could be relevant for someone. And then, like, you know how they say sometimes the cure to venom, like releasing the poison, is to, like, now I'm seeing the reference from Mean Girls when Lindsay Lohan talks about her life was, like, essentially turned into, like, poison, and, like, the way to do it is to, like, suck out all the poison. So maybe someone's going through that process right now of, like, sucking out all the poison. Now a dragonfly just flew by. And for me, dragonflies are very representative, again, just for me personally, of, like, deep karmic cycle endings. And when I say karma, I believe that word just translates to action. So any actions, repetitive behavior cycles, that can be ancestral, picked up when you were a child, etc., like through our cellular patterning and our DNA and stuff, that keeps repeating through generations. Those of us who feel connected to, like, that curse breaking, phrase or whatever, ancestral karma healing, it's like there's big cycles that are, or cycle, depending where you're at, that is coming to a close. Like I was talking about earlier, like that timeline collapsing. So that keeps, like, resurfacing throughout this audio so far. So as I was talking about the grid work, I know there's a lot of, I'm really diving into, like, people's perceptions about some of these topics and how cuckoo it can sound, or woo-woo, cuckoo, crazy. And trust me, I'm someone who has really gone back and forth with that. And I honestly, I still do sometimes. And I do feel like there are kernels of truth, and there are ways to embrace some of these truths within us, and also still allow it to be a unique individual experience while coming together as a whole. So, like, I love to talk about, like, the pendulum swing, where, like, sometimes you need to swing the pendulum all the way the other way to come back to a happy medium, or come back to that balance, that and I don't mean like 50-50 balance. I mean, like, just a weaving of all of your experiences into that present moment and continue building from there. And it's funny because I wrote down, and I was doing some research before this about the plasma body, and, like, a lot of us talk about awakening to our crystalline DNA, our plasma body, etc., etc. And I will talk more deeply about this in the Patreon Extended, if you are, or Overflow, I'm calling it, if you are, like, interested in that. But I just want to kind of touch on that because I do feel like it's going to come up more heavily in the Patreon. Anyway, so all of that to say, I wanted to bring through this absinthe frequency, if you will, and my experiences with it, because it really helped me kind of, like, observe my space in, I want to say, in a detached way, but not in, like, an escapist way necessarily. It was more like so I'm just going to give, like, a little process of how I got to the space, and then I think at some point I will do, like, if anyone is interested, please comment, like, a little guided meditation into the absinthe frequency, and I'll do, like, an actual journey into that. But for now, if anyone wants to practice this, of course, if you always need to feel like you need to protect yourself energetically first, there's a million things on YouTube that can help with that, but just really stating that. And it's funny, there's this, like, huge spider web outside of the place I'm staying, and it just keeps getting bigger. And the other day there was rain, and it, like, got washed away, but the spider was still there. And that was a couple days ago. And now it's, like, back, but it's bigger than ever. So it's like this protective, web of light, web of filament. So plasma filament, that's another phrase that I found on the Ascension Glossary website. And I made a video recently talking about filament. So maybe you just heard that, or maybe you will be guided to that after this. So, I'll talk more about that in the extended too, the plasma filament. But the idea here is, feeling safe and protected before you, of course, venture into these astral spaces or metaphysical experiences, if you're doing it more consciously, or just even setting the attention beforehand and letting it happen organically. That's a perfect way to do it too, if that feels good to you. And so as I was laying there in Kansas, I was on this bed, and I just remember I was laying down, and I just gradually, my eyes were closed, I was breathing, and I would like expand a little bit, like maybe a couple centimeters, and imagine my auric field expanding, then moving my point of consciousness continually up, out. However, like the path for you presents is perfect, but it's just the idea of just gradually, it's like by locating your consciousness, staying grounded in your body, and then just, incrementally expanding. And I got to this point where it was like, there's a show I like, How I Met Your Mother, or Himyan, where there's an episode where, if you've ever seen the show, Robin and Lily drink absinthe, and they're just like floating, and they hear everything as like a whisper. Again, it's like that fairy, whimsical, like, vibe, and it kind of was like that. Like I got to the space where it was like, even though I wasn't like listening to anything, I could hear these like whispers. I don't know. It's so hard to explain, but it was so relaxing. I'm actually drinking a drink right now that has that color of like, it looks like an absinthe glow color. Like it's I wrote down spirulina, so spirulina could be relevant for someone here, but it's a juice with spirulina and aloe, and it's like this blue-green color. It almost looks like, I'm seeing the oracle card in Mercury Light deck, the Mintankan Sea, so Mintanka could be relevant here if you feel connected to that energy, but it's like these like mineral green, slightly blue hue, clear waters, and that's what my drink looks like right now. It's unbelievable, actually. And that's like it's hard to put a color to a feeling, but if I had to, that's what it feels like. And also like a turquoisey color too. And again, like, pearlescent, like there's just these like very like ethereal feelings and colors and sounds, And so when I actually got to Kansas, and I told you I was like in bed and having this experience, let me see if this wants to come out. I'm going to tell a little bit of this, and then I'll probably go deeper in the overflow, because it was a lot, and I just kind of want to like break it up a little bit. But so, okay, I also wrote down light codes, and I know there's a lot of controversy around like light codes and light language and all of that. Phil Gruber is someone who has really helped me understand some of these concepts, and a lot of his work is based on Ashayana Dean and Kelantic science, which is a lot of my current studies as well. So if you're familiar with Phil Gruber, he does a really good job, but I do plan on breaking more of it down, from listening to him, from my own experiences, from studying different people. But there is some sort of like, loose structure to these, like, do you hear this fly? I don't know if you'll be able to hear it on the audio, but it's like going crazy right now. So I'm not exactly sure why, but we'll see. So breaking down these concepts, there's so many layers to these things. So it's not like oh, okay, now I just hear it and I know, there's layers, but I do really believe that as we take in information that we feel guided to, I talked about this in one of my last videos about auric key codes, and like there's certain pieces of information that I feel like when we really trust our intuitive flow, that comes to us, and like, it could be a portion of what we're listening to, a whole thing, but just knowing that there's like more and more like puzzles. I didn't mean to say that, actually. I meant to say pieces of the puzzle, but exactly, it's like there's one puzzle and then there's multiple puzzles. It's like tuning into the multiverse, or just like our experience here, and being able to like kind of swiftly glide back and forth between those concepts of like getting what we need in the moment and knowing that like when we need more, it will kind of show up, and letting these things integrate. So, oh my God, this color. Okay, so I watched a few, I didn't record the last few days. I was actually really kind of just like vegging out, and I feel like I really needed that. And this TV that I don't, haven't like owned a TV in a long time, but I was staying somewhere where there was a TV, and my friend put on a movie, like Disney movies, and there was something about this TV where like certain things would have this like green glow. I don't know what was up with the TV, but like we were watching some Disney movies, and like all of the sun, like S-U-N, the suns like looked green, and I didn't notice it right away that it was like a theme until like maybe the second or third movie after a couple days, and I was like, oh, what is it with this like green glow? And I remember I started seeing a couple years ago, like in doorways or around certain things, like energetically or psychically, whatever you want to call it, I would see this like beautiful green glow around certain things. And I saw it around a person before too. And there's another reader on YouTube who talks about this green glow in reference to like a union. So whether it's like some sort of spiritual union, a divine union with yourself, with an external person, with both. Because the way I see it, generally, it's like when you come into this more, internal union. I made a video about this recently too. It will show up externally. But of course, we all have our own, ooh, that was really loud. We all have our own experience. So I know it's not like the same size fits all, but that seems to be, for like at least certain people may be attracted to this, like a wave of beings who are like kind of on that trajectory. And so maybe you've been noticing like this, I'm hearing the word effervescent, like things taste, feel, seem more, maybe you're drawn to more effervescent beverages, but like, or you're noticing like a glow, maybe in yourself, maybe around other things, maybe you're starting to see auras, like, but there's something about this like green glow that's coming up. A few other themes and messages that have been coming through the last few days that I wrote down that could be relevant for anyone listening to this. Any type of fruit quartz. So you can look up like whatever fruit comes to your mind or something that you've been seeing. You can look up like the metaphysical properties, or maybe you're being guided to work with this in meditation or physically, however it comes up for you. But like strawberry quartz, tangerine quartz, cherry quartz, like these fruit quartz have been coming up the last few days. So that came through. I'm having deja vu, talking about deja vu. Deja vu seems to be, the interpretation for deja vu. Of course, we can look up the original. It's a French word. So the original meaning of deja vu, it translates to already seen from the French language. And when you look up the definition, it says like, hold on, I want to get the exact wording. A feeling of having already experienced the present situation. And I was talking about before, like, or at least I think I wrote this down, like all of the collapsed timelines and experiences and coming back to that present moment and like embodying all of that. So deja vu could be coming up. And for me, like personally, deja vu comes through, one second. There's a train going by and a fly just like flew on the outside of my cup. It was like not a fly, it was a tiny little gnat. And I think it might have died. So I just like, sometimes when that happens, I used to get really upset, and now I just send it off to the next realm with love, and I guess that's just how it happened. So someone here could be really like going through death and rebirth cycles, and my apologies if that train is super loud. So death and rebirth could be relevant. Bats can be relevant. There's something about like, oh yeah, I think I said a bat in the beginning. So I don't know if anyone here remembers the movie Fern Gully. Oh my God, I freaking loved that movie when I was a kid. And that came up yesterday, now that I think about it. Fern Gully, yeah. So there was a character named Batty, B-A-T-T-Y, played by the late Robin Williams, who I love Robin Williams. But anyway, and The main character is a fairy. It's funny, I was talking about the fairies and that being connected to this absinthe frequency. And so I think they even call absinthe the green fairy, if I'm not mistaken. So there's something, I just heard the word derailed. So I feel like this, I know I'm off topic for a second, but this train reminded me. My friend actually said tonight, like, she feels like she's at a place now in her life where, like, her path cannot be derailed. Like, she is so focused, even though she's having, like, seemingly detour moments or things that feel maybe not as aligned, they actually are. So I feel like someone here could be going through that where, like, again, those, like, old timeline collapses have gotten you to a place of, like, the derailment is not an issue anymore. It's just, like, can things be a little bit delayed? Sure. Sometimes, you know, you schedule a train or a plane and you might miss it. But then, like, when you're so in that, like, aligned flow, it's like, my friend is coming up as examples. Like, she was in Europe studying abroad with a bunch of people, and she had a scheduled plane that she missed. And people that she was there with also had a scheduled plane that they missed, 2 completely different flights, and they wound up on the same exact flight. And it's like, so things that feel like they're kind of off course is really just a part of that. And the derailment is not, like, it's already like this new, when I say new, like this highest, I'm hearing like the highest co-created blueprint for your soul's experience is, I get this a lot. I was talking about this in another audio a few weeks ago, where it's like dotted lines, like everything's kind of like, it's like in, I used this example before in Mario, when, like, if you ever played Super Mario, when, like, you're in the realm, or in the board, but, like, there would be, like, a superpower where you, or a super block where you can, like, hit it, but you didn't quite fill in that square yet, but the outline is there. It's like that. It's like the outline's already existing, and then along the way you fill it in. So it's like the derailment isn't there. It's already laid out, but it's still, like, potent to co-create and, you know, utilize that fertile energy to co-create along the way, but it's still already paved in that outline. So yeah, that's what I'm getting. That's really cool. So anyway, Ferngully and Batty. Yeah, so you can look up the spiritual meaning to bat if you want. And now I'm seeing, like, the Hangman and Tarot, you know, getting a new perspective on things. That could be something you've been working on. And then again, those death and rebirth cycles. I also was cloud scrying the other day, and I saw a 7 with a heart around it. So the 7 of Cups in Tarot could be relevant, and just having, like, a lot of options come in. I know that's been happening for me. It's like there was so much seemingly stagnant energy, like, and my reality seemed a little bit stagnant for a while, and now all of a sudden, like, all these things are coming in a great way, but it's like, okay, you can't take all of them, you know, or at least not at this moment. So really taking your time, feeling into, maybe putting yourself in that hangman energy sometimes, just to, like, observe, you know, hang upside down like the bat, and just kind of, like, feel into the situations that are calling you. And if you're not there yet, I feel like you know, it's probably coming quite soon. I know a lot of people say that, and I don't mean that to keep you in any sort of, like, I'll be happy when syndrome. If anything, it's an invitation to, like, you know, sit with yourself and see what action step you can take. And sometimes the action step, you know, is just kind of hanging back and enjoying the moment and doing whatever it is showing up for you. And sometimes it's doing a little bit more than maybe you have been doing. You know, it's only up to you to be able to, like, sit with that and see where you're at. But yeah. And also the Star card in Tarot has been coming up a ton as well. The Star is ruled by Aquarius, the water bearer, the air element, you know, like the mental plane, and also deep healing, like I was talking about with the dragonfly, being seen for, I'm getting, like, being seen for, oh my God, all these flies just started coming over my head. I just saw them, like, crisscross, like, weave together. So I'm hearing, like, things that you've been working on coming to, like, a culmination point and being seen for that. So that could be relevant for someone. And if so, congratulations, that's very exciting, or at least in the near future. I'm getting these like incremental cycles of like 3. So like things are starting, I feel like, to show up in a new way. So it could be like something comes in like, 3 days, and then you go into your inner cycles, and then maybe there's another thing that comes in 3 weeks, and it's just like what happened 3 days from now might shift what's going to happen in 3 weeks. I know this sounds very complicated, but it's really just like, again, coming back to that present moment, sitting with yourself and really like being honest with where you want to keep investing, Okay, what else? I have another aspect to my experience in Kansas and these Lemurian codes. So I remember I was walking one day, and I had been already seeing light codes coming off of the sun, off of really any source of light. I even see them in the dark too. So I've been seeing them for years at this point. But I was walking across this bridge in Kansas over water, and I just saw this very specific, like I hadn't seen it before. It almost actually looks like the Aquarius glyph. So Aquarian energy seems to be very relevant here. And like, those of us who feel connected to the idea of like ushering in, this next golden age in the Aquarian age. And I don't mean that so rigidly in like in astrology, but this, throughout our history, if you study like yugas or anthroposophy, there's the idea of ascension and descension and these natural cycles of humans and of planets and how they go dormant, and then they, just like volcanoes, eventually erupt and go through these cycles. So, I would probably, again, talk more about that in the extended, but I just wanted to hit on that because I feel like that's so important. Like when I started understanding some of these concepts on a more like expansive level, that it's not just about the human experience, but nature cycles and then planetary cycles, and then it keeps expanding from there. And I don't agree with all concepts of anthroposophy because people who are really versed in anthroposophy will say like it's years and years of layers, and I respect that and I get that, and I've tuned into different teachings of anthroposophy over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, and there are certain aspects that really have helped me understand certain concepts that were coming through my own dreams and experiences and stuff. So I will utilize that as it kind of comes up. And so understanding these larger cycles within our inner cycles, again, has been really helpful for me. And back to Lemuria, there's like the epochs. So there's like the Lemurian epoch, then the Atlantean epoch. And then before the Lemurian epoch, there was the Hyperborean epoch, etc., etc. And you can just Google this if you're interested. And Gigi Young is a wonderful teacher, I believe, of anthroposophy. And again, it's not that I, live and die by every word she says, but she's really helped me understand these bigger cycles and the epochs and how each one has its own theme of development. And I think that's so important when we're talking about some of these, codes that come through, because it kind of helps ground how that's relevant for us now. And so these Lemurian codes that I felt like were coming through, as I was seeing these codes in the sky, I was walking over a bridge. Bridges are over water. And so I saw this symbol, this glyph. It was in blue, and I remember it looked like, again, the Aquarian glyph. And I just remember like, okay, pay special attention to this. I didn't know why, but I just felt that intuitive nudge. I took a sip of my beverage, and that was very loud. And so I was walking over the rest of this bridge, and then I just got this feeling to like keep going, just keep walking. I don't know where I was walking, what I was doing. I was just exploring. And I somehow like wound up next to the river. Like I went down a path, and it took me like closer to the river. And I'm just walking around this river, and all of a sudden I see a sign that was the exact code that I saw, that looked like the Aquarian glyph, like the waves of water, like exactly. And it was only like, I don't remember how long, this was a couple years ago. Within the hour, it might have even been like 10 minutes, I don't know, but it was within that time frame, like 10 minutes to an hour, that I saw. And I was like, okay, this feels important. So then right before that, I stopped in this like metaphysical store, and I don't like usually just buy things like that, but I was like super guided to buy these runes. And I was like, I don't even know how to really read runes too well, but I've been studying them a little bit. And I had this, like, if you want to call it, like a vision of Odin, maybe like a couple months before that. And I had started like introducing myself to runes and the story of Odin, which is funny because he, the mythos goes that he hung himself upside down, and I believe he like took out his eyes, or one eye, to get a new perspective, which I was talking about the Hanged Man. I didn't even see how that was going to correspond. And so I had these runes. I'm walking around, and I at that point I was already doing grid work and channeling, so I had like some idea, and I just was guided to do these different things around the water and utilize the runes. And at the time I was like not telling anyone about this, and I was like, oh my god, if anyone knew what I was doing, like I felt like crazy, but I couldn't, it was such a strong pull for me to do this. And so that's what I was doing. And I remember I got to a point where these huge like structures were around the water, and I didn't know what it was. And it turned out that there were these like indigenous sites of like the buffalo hide, and I wish I remember the name. I'm sure I could look it up, but there were these like artifacts and like this whole dedication to the indigenous people and the buffalo of that area, and how there was so much like battle and just war and just all these famine and all these different things. So every so often they had these like big torches that they would light, like I guess in honor of the peoples that lived there prior, like the ancestors and the indigenous people to that land. And so I just went through and like looked at it all, and I was guided to just do some like prayer and stuff like that, like nothing too dogmatic, but just kind of what I was feeling in the moment. And so I'm sharing this just because it felt like that's what wanted to come through. And maybe someone here is experiencing things like this and they're feeling a little bit well, I heard the phrase off their rocker. I don't know if anyone feels that way, but there's this reignition a lot of us are going through of rebuilding our connection to our Merkabas, our light bodies, our crystalline DNA, our plasma bodies. And I think it's like it's interesting, like there's so many more people talking about it right now, but a lot of it isn't very grounded, so it can come off very like, I'm hearing the word like flighty or flinty. I don't even know if flinty is a word, but I heard the word flinty. And so I think the more of us who can like have these conversations and share our experiences might help kind of start I heard the word rebuilding. I guess rebuilding from a platform or some sort of foundation that is kind of like grounded and rooted in in this current structure of our reality, and like rebuilding within that. I don't know, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Yeah, let's see what's next. Okay, I looked down at the timer, and last time it was 27:11, and this time it was 44:11. And I know I kept saying that number about like 11 and then a number preceding it, so that just felt relevant. Okay, I was talking about grid work, and Indigo Angel was talks about these different grid like structures that she kind of has identified on the earth. Another fly just came up. And one of the grids that she talks about is the dove grid, which to her, that she represented as the freedom grids. And there's also the Cygnus Swan grid that I felt like I was really tapping into, but apparently the dove grid is like more current, and the Swan grid is like the futuristic, co-creative kind of grid experience. And so I was seeing a lot of white birds recently. The other day I was about to record or something. I was asking a question, and I was like, I don't remember what I was asking, honestly, but I just asked like for some sort of guidance. And I mean, immediately, within like seconds, I looked out the window and there were 3 white birds that flew by, like in that triangular pattern. So that could be relevant for someone like seeing birds. But the dove freedom grid, those of us who, even if you're not like super like conscious of that, but like really prioritizing like sovereignty and freedom, I feel like there's this current like pathway. Again, that 7 of Cups, like opportunities coming in that have been, or are like starting to solidify these energetic seeds that you've been planting, you know, for however long, are actually starting to like really come into play. They already should be, it's what I'm hearing, but if not, like, you know, again, I feel like it's popping in. So that's why, taking that time to sit with any decisions, and not, you know, there's like a very simple question you can ask yourself, and I did not come up with this. There's a lot of people saying this. It's like, am I making this decision out of love or out of fear? And I think that can help really navigate, you know, some of these options and choice points. Remember I earlier said I saw an X, you know, like a crossroads, or just like that feeling of like, okay, what do I really want, you know? Which is such a beautiful place to be in, if you ask me. I mean, I think that's great. So I wanted to say one more thing about the experience I had in Kansas. So I was laying, a lot of things happened while I was laying in bed, apparently. But I was laying in bed, and I remember a white dog just like shot out of nowhere. It's really pretty. Startled me a bit. So yeah, maybe something's about to startle you in some way, but don't worry, I'm seeing a 7 in the clouds again. I'm outside, so that number 7 seems to be relevant. Hello, how are you? I just paused. Number 47 was on the timer. That number could be relevant. So I was seeing that number a lot too the last 2 weeks. 47, which reduces to an 11, which seems to be a very reoccurring theme throughout this recording. And so I was talking about another experience I had in Kansas, and I was laying down, and I remember I just like couldn't sleep that night, and I was like kind of going in and out of sleep, and I was just like, what is going on here? And I remember I finally got to a place where I was like, wait, was I in Kansas or Georgia? I think I was in Kansas. No, it's definitely in Kansas. And I would say I was in the hypnagogic state. Which is really just a technical term for like the in-between space. If you've ever watched Peter Pan, someone I know, he doesn't know like a lot of the technical terms for some of these metaphysical experiences, but he would always say like, oh, you know, like Peter Pan like was really telling us what's up, like, you know, the space in between, that's where you go. So, you know, that space. And of course, oh my God, Tinkerbell and the fairy. There's so many like fairy references and weavings here. I promise I did not plan that before. And so, I just saw something in the sky. It was like 3 triangular dots. They were all connected. And again, that word filament is coming up. I did mention earlier, I made an audio a little while back talking about the filament, so that really could be relevant here, or maybe you've had an experience. If you don't know what it is, you can look that up. But in the plasma filament on Ascension Glossary, I'll probably link that below if you want to see more of like the expanded definition of that. And again, when I link these references, like I said, I don't live or die by every single piece of information, because I know we're all still human at this point in this plane, and even those of us who are bringing through different concepts, like have our own filters, even if, we do our best to be the clearest vessel we can be. There's, it's still a human experience. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at references or getting external information. Like the Ascension Glossary, again, has really helped me personally put a deeper verbiage to a lot of the things that were coming through my own dreams and inner knowing and experiences and meditations and channel. But, there were other aspects of the person who wrote the Ascension Glossary where I went into those teachings of hers and they did not actually really sit with me. And it's like that. I was talking about this with my other friend, the paradox, the paradox of Earth. And I was really like questioning myself, like, how can I feel so deeply connected to this aspect? But then, her other aspect, I was like, no, nothing, not connecting. And you know what? I don't really have all the answers, except that when we're in this paradox, once I accepted the paradoxical elements of these things, it flows, and, dots will connect just like that filament. It's like those etheric communications are always connecting in that like unity space of communication, and we go in and out. Most likely, most of us go in and out of that of that weaving of connection. And even if we're in that like flow all the time, there's still these, again, paradoxical elements of being a human and kind of just embracing that experience and the mysterious aspect of that. I don't know, that's just what's coming through, and how I kind of am at this point. Like I always say, we're always up for evolutions and changes. I'm looking in the clouds right now, and I just saw I'm seeing the Libra glyph, and also a lot of astrological placements are coming up today. I heard North Node, and then I also heard Leo. So I'm hearing Libra, Leo. I'm seeing initials HO. I'm hearing hydrogen oxide, so that could be for someone. Also, I'm drinking, maybe someone here is like trying to drink more alkaline water, or I'm hearing a word, but I don't know if it's right. Sometimes I'm in these spaces, I forget like English words. I'm hearing hydrogen, which I know is like water, but there's something about like bringing back the aliveness of water and different ways to do that. So someone here could be really into that. I know I am as well, so feel free to share anything that you have found along the way. I'm not sure if I already said this, but the other day when I was cloud scrying, I saw SAN, so those initials can be relevant in some way. And I also saw C3, and I'm being reminded of the fire letters angelic consciousness video I did, so there could be something in there for you perhaps, or maybe you already listened to it. But there's, I think it was called the Kabbalah Code. I have to go back, I can't remember the name of the reference, but I was talking about fire letters and DNA sequencing codes and like genetic codes. So, that could be relevant for someone. And for some reason, SANC3 reminded me of that. I also wrote down Monsters Inc. and Minion. I saw like this being in the cloud that looked like a representation of one of the Monsters Inc. characters, and then a minion. So any of that could be coming up, or just like a sign for someone. Let's see. I'm outside and it's very muggy, so I'm like really starting to sweat. So maybe someone here is like really feeling like they need a good sweat, or like maybe you've been going to a sauna or a steam room, or just sitting outside in hot weather, or I heard the phrase hot box. I feel like that's like people smoke weed and hot box themselves. I don't know, maybe someone here is doing that. I don't know, but there's something about like really sweating. So maybe someone here just, or maybe like having a really good workout. Yeah, there's something about just like really having like a good sweat. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, when I was talking about the Freedom Dove grid, Merlin came up. I remember when I was really focusing, like this was in 2022 or 2021, I like went through a period where I was like really heavily doing like rituals and manifesting. That was just my way. We're always manifesting. I mean, I was like really getting into like ceremonial high magic and like playing with that. And Merlin was showing up a lot. So Merlin could be coming up for you, the archetype of Merlin. The other day I wrote down, I kept hearing the song in my head, Jock Jams. Well, it's not really a song, it was like a whole, no wait, it is a song, but it was also like a CD, like back in the day, like the Jock Jams mix, and it would go through like all these songs like really quickly. So I don't know why that could be relevant for someone. And then I also was hearing John Jacob Jingleheimer, I can't even say it, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, one of those like nursery rhymes or whatever. I don't know why that was coming up too, so that could be relevant for someone. You could be having internet issues, like connection issues. Like, I know this the last like week or so, I go into certain spaces and like all of a sudden my internet just won't work, where like it was working before. I've also brought this up in a few other audios where I'm seeing like beings that are like different pixelations coming through of like faces coming through, like, you know, my FaceTime calls where no one else on the call is noticing it but me. So you could be having that come up, or maybe you're watching other people's content and you're noticing that coming through. I know when people get into these more, they say like, if you want to use the phrase like interdimensional or multidimensional spaces, there's more space for, like other realms to kind of pop in. So that's what I'm seeing. Rainbows could be significant. I also made an audio about a titled something with a rainbow, so that could be relevant, or maybe you're seeing a lot of rainbows. Let's see what else is coming through. Oh, I had a dream recently where something called pearl couscous, which is so crazy because I'd never even heard of that, and I just bought something the other day. I just realized it was called pearl couscous, I think. So that could be relevant for someone. Oh, and I also had a dream where there were all these flowers in broth, and it was so amazing. And I saw edible flowers today in the market, and I almost bought it, and I didn't. Next time I think I'm going to get it, because I really ideally like to forage my own flowers, but sometimes when you're in the city, it's hard to find, like, you know, find that. So someone here will be working with edible flowers or feeling the call to do that. Maybe drinking broth will be helpful for you right now. And I do feel like there's this, I wrote down, what does that say? Oh, okay. I do feel like a lot of people are going through these like heart layers that are peeling back, and these heart awakenings, which has been going on for quite some time. But I saw someone write a comment on a video the other day, and I really loved it. And they were talking about like trends and how like trends do happen, but just because a trend is happening doesn't mean, like, if something's really coming through for you and you're like, oh my God, now it's a trend. I've heard a lot of people say this, including myself. It's like, it's okay. As long as, you know, if you're doing it from your own heart space and it happens to be a trend, like, you can still do it in your own way and not like worry about that. I don't know, that could be for just a few people, but that was coming up. Okay, I didn't even finish. I was just reminded when I was laying in bed and having that experience in Kansas, and I couldn't sleep. And again, the fly just came back. I couldn't sleep. And I was going in and out, and I was talking about being in the hypnagogic or the Peter Pan, like, in between space. And I just started hearing, eventually I got into that space, and I don't know how to describe what I heard. It was just this most beautiful chanting, like, and I just felt so light and like, it was just such a beautiful moment. And it was as if I was like in this other place, and I was just surrounded. It was very masculine. It was a bunch of like masculine sounding chanting. And there is a group that identifies as like the Great White Brotherhood, and I don't mean that in like a racial term. I'm not going to go into detail of that right now, but that is like kind of what I was feeling. And I had other dreams and out-of-body experiences that kind of coincided with that. But anyway, so that could be relevant for someone. You know, maybe you're having these like clairaudient experiences, or these like mixing realm experiences where you're like, you know, laying in your bed or sitting on the grass or whatever, and then you're like feeling like you are bilocating your consciousness and having like other realms kind of like weave into your, you know, consciousness. So, you know, whether it's bilocation, trilocation, etc., that could be coming up. And or maybe it's been coming up for a while, like, you know, everyone will be in a different space. I'm not going to go any further into that right now, but I just wanted to share that part. And another song that came through that I have written down is, oh my god, I don't even know where this came from, but Shape of My Heart from Backstreet Boys. I didn't even know who it was at first. I thought it was Celine Dion, but it wasn't. Sometimes I'll like hear things and I have to like remember what I'm hearing. So maybe looking up the lyrics, there could be a message in there for you, or maybe that song might randomly come on, or maybe it just did come on, or maybe someone brings it up. I don't know. But the plasma body, actually, one of the descriptions was talking about like how it can be this like hot gaseous form, and then like when we integrate it in our consciousness, it takes like that, you know, etheric light body shape, so that there could be a connection there as well. I just looked at the timer and it's 1 hour and 44 seconds. So yeah, anything else that I have written down, I will weave into the overflow or extended on Patreon. I know that was kind of all over the place, but I'm just accepting that that's the way the messages come through for me, or the transmission. And so, yeah, thank you for listening, and feel free to share anything that comes up for you. And I hope that you have a really nice rest of your fill in the blank day, night, evening, morning, etc. Okay, thanks.